You know, some people say that 70 is the new 50, and I like the sound of that. This is Robert Manni, host of Guys TV, and this week we're going to discuss everything I've learned, everything I know, and everything I do to stay as vital as possible since recently turning 70. And it all starts right here, right now on Guys TV. You can also catch me on KCAA Radio here in Southern California, Guys Radio, my worldwide podcast, and we're on UK Health Radio all weekend long. Guys TV, Guys Radio, thanks for your support.
Hi, and welcome back to Guys Radio. If you don't remember me, my name's Ryan Gilpatrick. I'm the former producer of this podcast. If you're a listener of the show or a reader of Robert's material, you know that aging has been a recurring topic, both on the podcast and the written form. That's what we're going to be talking about today. So, Robert, to kick things off, let's level set. What does our culture tell us today about age, and why do people pay so much attention to the topic and the narrative surrounding it?
Well, I think in our culture, and particularly one of the reasons why I want to talk about turning 70 is because it's one of those numbers that it's like a marker that our culture kind of determines for us how we're supposed to think about different ages. For instance, when you're a teenager, you're the student, you're learning, you're the young worker in your 20s, you might be the parent in your 30s, you're mid-management or maybe upper management by the time you're in your early 40s, 50s, you're like, okay, what's that person doing in their career now? If you get to 60 working in certain industries, and you and I are from advertising, it's a young industry, you may not be there by 60 even, and then 70 becomes this moniker that you're old. And from talking to anybody I know from my generation, boomer generation, particularly from my friends and family, when they hear the word 70, it means old. And I'm here to tell you it doesn't have to mean that. And it's interesting how people really respond to that. I received from a very close relative to mine, let's put it that way, my present for turning 70 was a book about, it was called like, okay, now what? I'm dead, or something like that. And it's about how to do like planning for when you're going to pass. And I thought, wow, what a celebration of my first 69 years. I get a book
Happy
about
birthday, right?
Happy birthday, you're dead. And it's so absurd. But you know what? It wasn't the book, the gift was well intended. It's that everybody I've spoken to who's hit that age, the specific age 70, says something about old. The society says you're old, you get your McDonald's coffee discount, you're phased out of work, but it doesn't have to be that way. I mean, look, Clint Eastwood's in his 90s making movies. You have some of these, for better or for worse, you have some people in the Congress and Senate, they're in their 80s. Probably most of that is not very good. You've got the Stones just won the Grammy for Best Rock Album, and they're in their early 80s. It can be done. I have a very good friend, an attorney friend of mine. He just ran, I don't know, his like 10th marathon in New York. He's just turning 70 now. It can't, there's so much to do. I'm so excited and full of energy. And, you know, you've made it through a lot of ups and downs along the way, but there's so much that can be done when you hit the age of 70 and beyond. But the culture tells you you're done. Maybe you're the grandfather. Please get out of the way. Let's make room for the next generation. And I understand that the next generation wants us to get out of the way. We don't have to get in their way in terms of like corporate jobs per se, but in terms of usefulness and how our society devalues people with wisdom, experience, and a lot of energy and creativity, and who've lived and experienced a lot. I think it's a false narrative, like many other false narratives we've been fed over the years. And that's why I want to specifically talk about 70, because it is this lightning rod age.
Well, like we talk a lot about milestones as we age, right? So whether it's 18, 21, 30, 40, 50, so on and so forth. But like what is it about 70 in particular that makes it so much of a lightning rod, as you said?
Well, to kind of reiterate, with 70, they're telling you like it's the end. What you see is towards, you're heading towards the end, and that doesn't necessarily have to be the case. Look, a lot of people don't make it to 70, so you have to be blessed if you made it that way. That's a celebration. And if you take care of yourself, and you're lucky because to get to 70, you need some luck along the way because everybody's had some kind of potential exit points if you've lived long enough. But if you do get to 70, it could be the most freeing time in your life because society and culture has kind of said, okay, you go over here. If you've managed your life up to this point the right way, if you're fortunate to have enough to have decent health, if you've consumed the right things to take care of yourself, you're free. You can speak your truth. You can be who you really want to be, and nobody's going to get in your way. And you can actually accomplish almost anything. It could be the best time of your life. You could conceivably more and more people living to 100. So that means if you hit 70, you could have 30 years to go. Maybe you get 20 real good ones, but who knows what they're going to come up with in terms of technology and medical advances over the next 10, 20, and 30 years. So instead of seeing people who are 70 and saying, you're done, out of the way, look at them for wisdom, look at them for potential. And if you are in that age bracket like I am, I just ignore it. To me, aging is a choice. I went out on my 70th birthday and I did the usual amount of push-ups plus 10 more in the morning because I'm fortunate enough to be healthy. I'm fortunate enough to have taken care of myself. I've had my bumps along the way, but I didn't feel a difference between my 70th birthday and the last day I was 69. I mean, it's not like something happens, but society deems you to be, click, you're old when you hit 70. That's just what's embedded in people. And I've heard it from every single person I know who's turned 70. Without exception, they've used the word old.
Mm. So that's interesting. I mean, like I've known you for a long time. You've lived a lot of life, right? But I think that whenever we're hitting these sorts of milestones, there's this, fear and trepidation about hitting that specific milestone. And then, I found at least like when I turned 30, for instance, it was like, oh, it felt like a weight was lifted off of my shoulders because I was no longer burdened by thinking about starting a new decade or anything like that. So when you hit 70, like, how did you feel? Did you feel a similar sort of like weight lifted off your shoulders? Like, you mentioned that you didn't feel any like physically different than you were at 69 or beyond, but like, talk to me about how that there's this transformation as you reach a new decade and what that kind of experience was like for you.
Well, I'm a human like anybody else. So I had, when I did hit 70, I'm like, 70, okay. I had to mentally, step by step, keep pushing that 70 old aside, 70 old aside. Now, I am mindful about stuff. I know, chronological age, there's a certain amount of years is added up. I warm up before I do anything a little more, before I do anything too strenuous. I have other practices that I've incorporated to keep myself on point. But it was a little bit of a sneaky, insidious challenge that came in with 70 comes in is like, you can say whatever you want, buddy, you're 70. So you have to be prepared for it. I've never had that in any other age, but it was because our culture has embedded in all of us throughout media, throughout what I hear from everybody, that 70 is a very special age in our culture about that means you're old. That doesn't mean you can't do anything about it. And as I've said, I think it can be a very freeing point. But I didn't say I'm celebrating I'm 70 because I'm free now. And I didn't say I'm old because I'm 70. I just tried to not make it, not take on the cultural weight of turning that age.
Do you think that a lot of people in your age range would feel the same way, or are they feeling that sort of societal pressure that says that you're 70, you're old, things are coming towards an end, that sort of thing?
Well, as I mentioned, I think every single person that I know who turned 70 has used in some form or fashion the word old. And when you start saying, words have power, and what you say about yourself can easily become reality. So you have to be really careful. I'm not saying BS yourself and saying, oh, I'm 30. You have to be more careful how you treat yourself, of course, but you have to be very careful not to fall into the trap of defining yourself the way your culture has defined yourself as 70 equals old.
Right, right. So I guess, what do you think are some of the biggest factors for you that have allowed you to kind of escape this thinking that, or just that not dwelling on the fact that like this is an old age or whatever, but has allowed you to kind of transcend into the way of thinking that there is still time. I can still do all of these amazing things with the time that I have here.
Well, over time, I've attempted to do the best I can in pushing aside the whole notion of chronological age by coming up with kind of one of my mantras, which is aging is a choice. So I decided that I would just keep in mind the fact that forget the number, it's coming no matter what I do, but don't focus on that. Focus on the things I can really control: how I feel, what I do, what do I learn, how do I relate to other people? Just a lot of things about working on myself in a way. How can I serve? And focus on that. And then the number is just going to come along with it. But I think it's important and to look at the examples of all the people who are over 70 who have accomplished amazing things. If one person can do something, anybody can. Now, of course, I want to have the caveat once again is that hitting age 70, you have to be fortunate, lucky, blessed. Things can happen along the way. You never know. You can get chronic disease. You can have a terrible accident. All types of things can happen. They can happen at any age. So the longer you're around, the more chance you have of that possibly occurring, but also the more chances you have of a lot of good things happening also.
For sure. But I think with the advancements in modern technology and the way that we've evolved as a species over the last, couple generations, 70 isn't necessarily today what it was like back then. So, what did you like? Can you kind of speak to that generational divide? Like 70 for you, it's not going to be the same 70 that it was for your parents. So, what's similar about it? How does it kind of differ? What do you think are the biggest takeaways from that generational advancement?
Well, the number is the number. So it's how you define the number, though. So for my parents' generation, once they hit their mid 50s or so, they started to like mentally kind of wind down. And that's just the way it was. And that's okay. With our fast-paced world that we live in, it's always new, next, gotta. So if you are interested, you're going to always keep upgrading yourself, learning new things, maintain curiosity. There's a lot of people of my age group who are set in their ways and particularly set in their way of thinking. And more of those are, as that I found, is a lot of guys are really locked into the way their opinions and not open to new thinking or considerations. And I think one of the things I've attempted to do, and this isn't a session, Ryan, for me to pat myself in the back, but one of the things I've learned, and that's from interviewing over 750 thought leaders on the show, is that you have to be curious and you have to know what you don't know, and you have to do anything you can do to peel away the layers of what you've been told you are or what society has told all of us what we are, and rediscover our authentic self. And if we do that, there's I have learned, one of the things I've learned over the years, and it's not my initial idea, but it's one of the things I've taken in as a truth. And that is, we are souls and spirits living in a physical body, not the opposite way around.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a beautiful balance of the both, right? The physical and the spiritual, right? So, but from a physical standpoint, obviously, your the way that you warm up changes, the way that your practices change as you age. But specifically as you've hit these milestones, whether it's 30, 40, 50, 60, so on, how have those kind of physical changes impacted you, and what do you think that people can do to mitigate some of those changes as they progress in age?
Great questions. A couple of things. I think from your diet, what you consume is incredibly important. So over the years, I know a lot of people who are at my age, particularly guys, and they kind of live the same way they did when they got out of college, and they consume a lot of the same stuff. And I think it's important, if you're a major league pitcher and you turn like age 40, you're not going to be a power pitcher as much as more of a finesse pitcher, like a CC Sabathia, somebody like that, or a heavyweight boxer. You're going to be more, you're not going to be all about the power. You're going to use your head more. And I think that's what we need to do along the way. We have to watch what we consume. For instance, a lot of people love the carnivore diet. For me, it was great for many years, just having meat as part of a mainstay of my diet 5 times a week at least. And now I don't eat meat. I haven't eaten meat for the last 15 years. For me, it works. I don't begrudge anybody who's on the carnivore diet. It works for them. Fantastic. You have to find what works for you. So I found that works for me. 4 years ago, I stopped consuming alcohol. Anybody who knows me knows I enjoy fine wines and spirits, and I worked in the business. I stopped. And looking back, I realized that now that was one of the best decisions I ever made. It was a lot easier than I thought. Once, like anything else, once you get through it a little bit, it becomes easier. And I realized it was about the ritual, not about the alcohol. So I will drink once in a while a non-alcoholic beer, or even a non-alcoholic wine, or even maybe even a non-alcoholic spirit. And it gives me the same benefit. It's just, you're there, you go through the ritual, opening up a cold beer, pouring it into a glass and enjoying it. That's different than go out and pounding 10 beers or something and watching a game with my friends, which I did, for years in my 20s and 30s. So you learn to, turn the dials a little bit. And I think that helps with the aging process. If you start to, you're aware of the chronological age, but you're not led by the chronological age. And when you do that, I think you have a much better opportunity to maintain your health and well-being as much as you possibly can. I personally had a health crisis as you know, about 11 years ago. I had 2 partial nephrectomies, which is a piece of each kidney got taken out. I've been clear ever since. I just put it behind me. I said, thank you for that experience. Please leave, and I moved on. And fortunately, it's been good for me. But obviously every case is different, but you can only do what you can do, but nothing's going to happen if you don't give it your best shot.
Yeah, I mean, you've been very open in the past, even while undergoing these, kind of health crises that you had, a decade plus ago. So would be curious to know, like, what kind of role that illness and illness in general has played as you've aged, and some of your biggest takeaways from having dealt with that sort of health crisis.
Well, in my particular case, the crisis I had the first something bad turned out to save my life. I was running, I had incredible pain. I used to go out and run 10 miles like every Saturday or Sunday. And I came back, I was in pain, and I had to lay down for about 5 hours. And then same thing happened the next day. And finally I went to the doctor and I said, you have a kidney stone. And oh, by the way, you have a small growth on each kidney. So I had that taken care of right then and there over the next 5 weeks or so. And I never looked back. So one of the most painful experience of my life was a kidney stone, turned out to save my life. So you have to look at it that way. And then I said to myself, well, what have I learned from this? And I had a guest on my show, Dr. Amit Goswami, and he said, if your body can cultivate this type of thing in your body, then that means you have to address, how do you clean up your that internal landscape so this doesn't happen again? So I went to a place called New York Innovative Medicine, and I went through a whole holistic Ayurvedic treatment center, and their pathology I went through, and it really helped me. And I know that if I didn't do that, then I would have, if anything ever happened, I would look back and say, why didn't I invest the time and the money to do this? Instead of I did it do anything? I think it did, but sometimes with these things, we don't know. So, but a lot of it is about the placebo effect, maybe, where you believe that something works, then it has a better chance of working. So the point is, you don't just, have something happen and then you forget about it. You have to understand, when I had something growing inside of me, I learned about why your body needs to be less acidic, why having an alkaline body is more important. What are the things you can do and I can do to make my body put it in a more alkaline, healthy state, so these things don't have a propensity of happening again? Can they happen again to people? Of course they can. But the point is, you participate. You don't just react, you respond. And I think that's incredibly important, that you have to take the steps to take care of yourself as best you can. There's no guarantees, but if you didn't do that and you just let things happen, you might look back and say, what did I do to prevent something like that from recurring? Nothing? Well, because I have friends, they have, and old colleagues, they got cancer and then they're smoking and drinking all the time. Right. It's like, they're just going to keep doing what they've been doing. It's like, okay, whatever. Or they don't change their diet. Well, good luck.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned before that there are a lot of there are a lot of people who are just like, you've done this for so long, you're stuck in your old ways.
Right.
Whereas, like, by contrast, I've known you a long time. You've always been, open and accepting of, other modalities, both health, spiritual, all that kind of stuff. So, like, you've dabbled, taken steps in Ayurvedic medicine. Like, you've, radically changed your diet over the time that I've known you. Are there any like specific steps that you have
Yes.
taken that have really made a tangible difference, or would you say that it's more of a mental kind of lifestyle change, or a different mental way, like a way of thinking that has made the biggest change, or both?
I think both. I think from a mental standpoint and a quote unquote spiritual standpoint, meditation. I think
Mm.
meditation, I'd recommend that for anybody. And there's so many different forms of meditation. I got certified in TM based on a guest I had on my show. And I got connected to some of the top TM people and got into that.
Transcendental meditation, for the
Transcendental
record.
medicine. Thank you.
Okay,
Yes.
cool.
And that's helped me a lot. It's very easy to do. Anybody can do it. And it really makes a difference by doing it daily,
Mm.
consistency. So that's really helped. I think also do this, not that, adapt. So for instance, I used to run all the time.
Mhm.
And about 3 years ago, I was racing with my son, and I beat him. And then I figured you got to let him win. So I let him win, and I pulled up, and I really hurt my hip. And I haven't really run since, because it's always like if I go out into a full out sprint, it's kind of bothered me a little bit. And I've been a little concerned. I don't want that to happen again, because I was laid up for about a week. So
Mm.
I started swimming. So I went from running to swimming. And I don't go with free weights at my age. If you do kind of lighter free weights, it's good. But I went from a lot of work with weights to using my own body weight, more stretching, planking, push-ups, things like that. So you don't have to drop everything. You can just find, well, now that my body seems to have moved in this direction, what can I do to get the same benefits? So I don't go pound weights, pounding my pecs in the gym all the time. I don't do that, but I'll do push-ups, I'll do planks, I'll do other stuff. And for my mind, I'll do meditation. And I also learned, based on one of my guests, Dr. Joe Vitale, Ho'oponopono, which is a very healthy spiritual practice. And then I also am very concerned about and mindful about what I consume. Now, that's food, that's drink that we talked about, but also what you consume from the culture. So in terms of music, film, television, the news, everybody yelling at each other, even the sports talk shows, everybody's yelling at each other, the movies that are on. How many movies about a hitman do I have to watch now? I mean, right? The new leading man is a hitman. And there's every movie you see out there, except for a few, when we talked about one.
I love me some John Wick, though. I can't
Yeah,
stop, won't stop. You tell me
everybody,
that I won't. I have to see the new Mission
I like them too. I
Impossible.
like
Like,
it
I got to
too.
do it.
Or I don't even find, like, I think Mission Impossible it's different than like a Deadpool to me.
Mm.
Deadpool is like, that's pretty dark stuff, particularly for kids. But that's nothing. There's so many movies with big stars in them that are making these really it's about vengeance, and there's a lot of violence. And I think you have to take that in measured steps, because it's easy to get addicted to that type of entertainment. And frankly,
Sure.
it's not positive. At the end, like, there's a lot of dead bodies, and you really don't feel that good when you watch
Mm.
a lot of this stuff. But the point is, and even with music, is a lot of the stuff is really down vibrationally, and they've done studies on that with the frequencies in a lot of the music, and even with the words and the lyrics and stuff. You have to be careful. You take that in, it becomes part of your frequency, your own personal frequency. And not to be sanctimonious, but to me, it's what you consume, you become. Your body, you look different. You, me, everybody, we look different than we did 5 years ago. The cells have changed. Everybody's cells has changed over time. We keep replacing ourselves. Why not replace yourself by upgrading?
Mm.
Even if you're aging, you can continue to upgrade.
Yeah, I'm totally on board with you, with the exception of the music, perhaps. I mean, you're talking to a guy with an "Every Time I Die" poster on my
I
wall.
know,
I
I
mean, like,
know,
I'm and me, I'm a
I know.
positive guy. I try to bring good vibes wherever, whatever room I enter.
You do.
But we need to. I think that there's there's validity in balancing the light and the dark, and I think that
Mhm.
everybody has a little bit of that. But you brought up that kind of triggered an interesting like thought about me, and it's like it specifically pertains to the spiritual aspect of it. Obviously, like you, over the course of your life, you have placed an emphasis on physical health, and you've been very conscious about your consumption, food, media, in every variety. But from a spiritual perspective, you've done a lot of exploration within that space, and I would be interested to hear more about what you've learned from that spiritual journey that you've been on for the past 70 years, and what have been some of the most transformational or important pieces that you've taken with you that you feel would benefit you as you embark on this new chapter as you hit 70. What has given you the best benefit and in something that you'd like to take forward with you?
Well, I think never, it's about frequency. And I pounded myself pretty hard when I was in my early college days, after college days, work hard, play even harder. And so I
Mm.
don't know if I can ever get my frequency to where I want it to be, but I keep working on it. So I have dropped, taking different substances and all of that over the years and keep myself as clean as possible. From my
Mm.
show, I've interviewed psychics and mediums and channels, and it seems to be, and they don't talk to each other per se, but I've heard from so many of them, like hundreds of them, literally, that we're in a frequency. Let's say we're in an AM frequency as three-dimensional beings, and
Mm.
if you can be in touch with fourth dimensional frequency, maybe people who have passed over or animals who have passed over, and then there's a fifth dimensional frequency where you can think something and it happens right away, and then it goes from there. The point is, I have learned that frequency is incredibly important. Anything we can do to raise our frequency, meditation, prayer, positive thoughts, positive self-talk, service, anything we can do for ourselves and for others where everybody kind of wins. And that's why I say with the show, Guys Radio is a place where men and women both win. That's core to what the show and my brand is all about. Like, why can't everybody win? So I think that's something I've learned over time, that if you continue to work, you have more power. People have more power than they think they do at any age. And it's never too late to start working on yourself internally. You want to change the world. I don't think people are satisfied where what's happening with the world right now. The best way to change it is change yourself. And the
Mm.
best way to change yourself is inside out. Be honest with yourself. Who am I? What am I? What do I want? How can I serve? What do I have to offer? I've interviewed so many dating coaches and experts, and so many people go out there, and 50% of people over 50 in the United States are single. There's a
Yeah.
reason for it. A lot of them don't know what they want. They don't know who they are. They don't know what they have to offer. They just have a laundry list of things they've got to have from other people, and they keep dating the same type of people. They keep running into the same type of issues, and they don't take the time to say, what has my role been in this? I know for myself, one of the most important things I've learned over the years, when I had been in a number of really good relationships that didn't work out, long-term relationships, and I hadn't been married. And I asked myself, I don't know how I came up with this, but I said, what am I doing wrong? And I got an answer. And many times, if you're not afraid of prayer or you don't dismiss it, you will get answers, because I believe in other dimensions. There's other forces working with you. So I asked myself and asked my team and my guides, without knowing there were even guides or a team, basically say, what am I doing wrong? And what I was told was, just a knowing, was, you're not making room in your heart for somebody else. And that was 100% true. So I went home that Thanksgiving and I told my mother, because nobody even asked me anymore when I was getting married. I was in my late 40s. And I told my mother, I'm getting married next year. And she said, oh, that's fantastic, Bobby. Who are you marrying? I said, I don't know, but I'll let you know. I know it's going to happen. She's like, okay, fine. Sure enough, a year later, I was engaged. I met my wife, and we've been together for 15 years. And I'm glad I waited. And it's different for everybody. But for me, this was the right path to take. But I only got there because I asked myself, what am I doing wrong?
Mm.
What can I
Well,
improve on?
well, it's you did the segue for me, Bob. But I mean, like when we first started working together, I mean, you had released the novel. You were basically like a dating and relationship expert, but you have a unique perspective in that, like, you got married in your 50s. You became a father soon after that. So, kind of touching on your journey of growth and discovery, like what do you think that you would have done differently?
Oh, great question. Well, if I kind of knew if I knew then what I know now, I could have made some decisions because obviously I'm glad I waited to get married. I found the right person. I have a son. I wouldn't have had him. I have him, and he's the son I want. But I would have wanted to be in a position, and one of my motivations is take care of myself so I can have as much time as possible watching him grow up. So I coach his baseball team. I take him to swimming. We play games together. We shoot baskets and I keep myself in shape. I take care of myself so I can be a vital father my age instead of somebody who's like just off on the sidelines. So I do my best to participate without embarrassing myself. And because, I'm out here in Southern California, you go baseball, whatever, I coach with the other baseball coaches. They're all like 25, 30, great shape, incredible baseball acumen. And I do anything I can to keep up and make sure I give some tips to my son. And that keeps me young. And I think anybody can do that. So hanging around with younger people than yourself, you get a fresh perspective. I get to look at how do these 11-year-old boys relate to each other? It's amazing. When he was 9, 10, 11, just seeing a whole new generation. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I can't go back. But I just do the best with where I am right now. I try to stay in the present and do the very best I can with that. If I had to do things over, everybody has some regrets, but I wouldn't have ended up where I am if it wasn't perfect. And this was my path, and this is where I'm supposed to be. And I don't think about, well, what could I have done different? Yeah, if I went back, would I have gone into advertising? Maybe, maybe not. If I did go into advertising and marketing, I maybe would have taken a different path and maybe would have made different decisions. But you know what? And I think this is for everybody. Looking back, you got to ask yourself and pat yourself on the back and say, I made these decisions based on what I thought was the best decision at the time, and leave it. Just keep going. And a lot of times, as you've learned, I'm sure, Ryan, and all of us has learned, that sometimes when things don't work out, it seems really terrible at the time, but actually a bigger door is open and better things are there waiting for you. So in other words, I was devastated. A couple of relationships didn't work out. I got dumped, and turned out to be the best thing ever because it led me on a path to meet my wife and have the son I have. And it's perfect. So I can't, anything that we can come up with, one of the things I've learned is only an infinitesimal amount of what could be and what the universe or God, whatever, has in store for us. If we only are open to letting go and being open to how good things can get, will those things have an opportunity to happen? Instead of trying to force things, trying to control things, and trying to have things, I want this right now. And that's how, we've been trained as a culture to be like that. And it doesn't have to be that way.
I feel like that's some sort of wisdom that comes with age, right? And like you said it yourself, even like coaching Sky's baseball team, you're surrounded by younger dudes, like my age, even younger, perhaps, right? There's got to be some major differences between that. So like, you said that these guys, yeah, they might be more fit, they might have more modern baseball acumen, but like, what are some things that you think that you have that these guys don't have and should?
Well, I think what you learn over time is you get a little bit more patience. You learn to witness instead of react to everything. You learn to respond more than to react. And you've seen things happen. You've seen, the relationships with people, how they can change. You can start to see when you meet somebody, you kind of get a knowing as to how things could work out with this person or what people are really like and kind of what's behind the screen, if you will, a little bit more as you age. You have an inner, I think your inner confidence. If you're paying attention, if you're remaining present and not thinking about, oh, I should have done this or, oh, I should have done that, because of the experience you have and the amount of situations you've been through, you are allowing your inner compass to play more of a role in the present. And that allows you to avoid negative situations that may have occurred in the past that aren't going to occur now because you see them coming up along the hillside.
Yeah, I mean, I think again, it's with that experience comes that sort of that knowledge base that you continue to grow over the years, right? So, you know, during that experience between, let's say, between the ages of 30 and 70, like I'm sure that you've gotten some key tidbits of wisdom that have really kind of shaped you. So would be interested to know like what kind of advice you've gotten along the way that you've really kept with you, or what you wish that you would have known at an earlier age, be it your 20s, your 30s, that really you think would have been the game changer there.
Well, when I grew up, my older brother, my mother used to force him to take me along to play ball and stuff like that. So then he went off to college and he kind of did his thing. So I had to learn a lot of stuff on my own. And he was a very good big brother at that time frame for sure. But then I had to really do stuff on my own. My dad traveled a lot. My mom was always there. So I had to learn and made a lot of mistakes along the way and didn't have a real mentor or anything. And the same thing in business. I had to like stumble and pick myself up, but I kept falling upward, which is good. I think what I learned was you have to continue to learn. You have to continue to move. You have to continue to grow, and you have to continue to do things that are going to improve yourself. The one thing that happened to me that really was a trigger point was my dad traveled all the time, and when he was home, I really would listen to him and stuff. And one time I was between jobs and advertising. I was living in New York. I was really feeling down. I got a card in the mail. And I opened it up, and it was a picture. It was a drawing of a kid like holding a violin. He's standing there on stage facing the crowd. And you open it up, and it said, "Believe in yourself," and "Love, Dad." And I kept that. I put it up in my apartment, and I kept that for about 30 years until I don't know what happened. It's somewhere now. I still have that. But I think that's key. Believe in yourself, because if you listen to everybody else, not everybody is necessarily rooting for you. They could be friendly with you, but everybody's focused on themselves. I get it. So you have to really believe in yourself if you want things to happen. And that has been something that has spurred me along, the self-belief that I think it's important that everybody has. Now, about the whole thing of turning 70 and all that, continue to believe in yourself. Believe and look at the positive. Okay, I'm 70. Look at all the things I've learned. Here's a celebration. I wake up every morning. Again, I'm not patting myself on the back. This is what I do to keep myself as young as possible. I say thank you. First thing I say, thank you. Thank you for this day. Thank you, God, for experiencing yourself through me. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for experiencing your love through me. Thank you for my experiences. Thank you for always being there, even though sometimes it feels like I'm alone. And this is what I believe. Anybody can do what they want or think what they want. I'm totally all about that. Don't tell other people, what to do. You can only suggest if somebody asks you. But I think having that underpinning of spirituality is really important, particularly as we age. And when you hit 70 or so, if you don't believe in anything, fine. But to me, it's a time to be free. It's the time to really connect with your true self. It's a time to really do the things you want to do, define yourself the way you want to be defined, and just push the noise aside. Don't get sucked into listening to the noise.
So now that you've hit this milestone, what excites you the most? What are you most stoked when you think about this next chapter that you're embarking on? What's the thing that motivates you the most about 70 beyond?
Well, a couple of things. One, I think that I didn't realize that I can really help people. And with the show and with the content I create, it's all about helping other people as much as I possibly can. So that feels really good. The good things will happen based on that. I don't, I'm fortunate enough to be in a position that I can do that and not just about make it transactional. And I know how that works, and that's good. And of course, I enjoy that. But fortunately, I'm in a position that I can put information out there and be in a position to advise, guide, teach, and help other people. And I don't, anybody can do whatever they want with it. Like when guests come on my show, it's about, hey, folks, here's this person. This is what they know about. Listen, decide, is this something that you want to work into your curriculum or not? And then you take it from there. So anything I can do to be of service, that gets me excited. And all the content I want to create, all the guests I want to interview, all the things I want to do with my son, with my family. I have as many hopes and dreams and aspirations now as I did when I was 30. In fact, I was probably more interested in partying and just getting laid, and that's it, and making money than now, which I think my goals are a lot probably more positive than I had then. Everything then was just about self indulgence and quick satisfaction.
I think there's, speaking as a man in his 30s, I feel like there's a degree of validity and truth in that. I can neither confirm.
I totally get
deny.
it.
Yeah, but I will say one of the things that I appreciate most about, your writing and the pod and everything that you've been bringing to the table is that you've always been someone who has been willing to explore the depths of wellness, spirituality, dating, all of that kind of stuff, and just presenting it in a way that you're allowing the reader, the viewer, the listener to choose for themselves and apply what is most valid for them, what they think would be best, most applicable to their lives. And I think that kind of mentality and that sort of openness is something that will provide one with more longevity and a more fulfilling experience. So I don't know. How long are we trying to go about? Are we going for 100? Are we shooting for 100? Going
Absolutely.
for $110? Like what are we?
We're going for triple digits, and then we'll see what happens along the way. With advances, I'll do what I do, but in the meantime, there's going to be so many advances, medical advances, med beds, so much more learning that we're going to get. Hopefully we'll get some better food along the way, etc. But I figured I just keep my eye on the prize and take things as they come.
I mean, I think that's the mentality, and it's given you a long and fruitful life. And, I'm one of the fortunate recipients of a lot of the stuff that you've brought to the table. So again, cannot thank you enough for allowing me to be a part of it and for everything that you've brought to the table. As we're sort of like kind of winding down at this point, any final thoughts that you want to leave us with, whether it is advice for these people who are on the brink of this major milestone, or any advice that you want to share for younger guys, my age, younger, whatever you can impart us with. What do you want to leave us with?
I think no matter what your age, continue believe in yourself, be mindful of what you consume, learn how to meditate if one specific thing, keep learning and keep moving.
I love it. Bob, thank you. This has been as always, man, it's been an enlightening conversation. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Ryan. I wouldn't want anybody else doing this but you. Thank you for your friendship.
Hell yeah, brother.
All right.
You're a good man.
All right. Ciao.
If you enjoy the guests and content I bring you each and every week to Guys TV and Guys Radio, please support us by subscribing to our channels and platforms. Thank you.